Okay, we went through this human relation movement, right? The four experiments we talked about in the previous class. Then we went through what are the outcomings, what is the contribution from all of this, and then we talked about the contributions. Then I think we stopped at the limitations. We'll continue from there. Okay, limitation. So the human relations movement, it gave a lot of stress on the human relations part of the management, and there were a lot of good things that were observed. One of the things like informal group, and that was the one important aspect that came out, and other aspects of human relations that helped in how we can improve the motivational theories, and what all can become the motivation for the employees. So those were the good things about that. Also, it had certain limitation. So it is a swing in the opposite direction and is much incomplete as scientific management and administrative management approaches. If like Taylor and Fayol viewed the task and structure as their central tenet and ignored the human variable. If you have, we saw the Taylor and the Fayol, the scientific and administrative management. There was more focus on the task and the structure. It is like a mechanic side of the organization, and they ignored the human relations. That is a human variable. On the other hand, the human relations movement, on the contrary, it gave a lot of importance to human variable, and ignored other variables. So we can see like uh, those aspects like scientific and administrative more focused on the structure, task, how work can be done, focused totally on that. And human relations movement, it focused completely on the human relations. It really didn't consider the other factors. It totally ignored other factors. That is one limitation. The implicit belief of this approach that an organization can be tuned into an big happy family. So the implicit belief here was like we can make a very happy family. So that is not possible, because there are going to be a lot of issues pertaining to the human relations, and that those things we should expect, and those will be present. We cannot consider it would be like a one big happy family. No, that is not at all possible. So that was another limitation, where it was always possible to find solution which satisfies everybody in is not correct. Okay, so you already know satisfying everybody is impossible. When we have a group of people, we can satisfy majority of the people. So it is impossible to satisfy like everybody. So if your theory is based on you would satisfy everybody, that eventually will fail. Every organization is made up of a number of diverse social groups with incompatible values and interest. These groups might cooperate in some spheres and complete and clash in others. Okay. Every organization, you cannot have a homogeneous group. Means homogeneous in the sense everybody will think alike, everybody is from the same background. That is impossible to have, right? We will have diverse groups, and their interest would be different, right? And whenever certain changes are done, it might be it goes in interest with some group, or it may not go with the other group. That is always possible. So two groups within the organization whose interests frequently come into conflict are management and the workers. So which are the two groups always there will be their interest are in conflict is as we know, like it's a management and the workers. So always like there is a tussle. Thus, in a recession, the management of the company may clash with the workers if it decides to lay off some of them. No amount of human relations can sugarcoat this reality indefinitely. Management can only put off the decision for some time. So, in case of a recession, so you can see the current situation we are going through. there are a lot of job losses, right? When it's not a really recession, okay? Present situation is a not a recession, it's a kind of a slowdown because of COVID situation. And a lot of management, they might extend the layoffs, things like that, but it will not stop the layoffs because they have to cut the cost and various reasons. No human relation will stop that. So this will not work out in such scenarios. Number three, this approach overemphasizes the importance of the symbolic reward and underplays the role of material reward. Okay? So it gives a very high importance for the symbolic reward. What is a symbolic reward? Like giving a good environment. We saw the example of the few female workers who made to work in a specialized group, things like that. It gives that is important, but this human relation management approach gives lot of focus or importance for that kind of rewards rather than the material rewards. Material rewards is like in terms of a physical terms, okay, not just words of appreciation. Okay, symbolic reward is words of appreciation, so that will work out, but also the materialistic rewards are also very very important. One must realize that for symbolic rewards to be effective, the recipient must first identify with the granting organization and family, friends, neighbors, etc. So, for symbolic rewards to work, it will be effective only uh, uh, when the recipient is identified with his organization, his friends, family. Then only it becomes more important, right? You will always feel proud, when we appreciate you in front of these groups, right? If I appreciate you, like if you are doing a very good job, if I appreciate in front of your parents, that reward is much more than if I just say a good words to you when you meet in individual. So that is what it is saying. So symbolic rewards gains more importance with the presence of the other people, like organization, family, friends, etc. Many times, workers in a factory is ridiculed for his co-workers on receiving symbolic reward from his employer, and such rewards generally fail to achieve their objective and higher production. So normally, what happens is like this is just a observation they have done, which might be true to a great extent. Normally, they ridicule whenever you get symbolic rewards. So somebody appreciates you in front of all the people, it would be informal, right? So when the other co-workers might ridicule saying few things about what manager has said. If it is like a formal reward or a materialistic reward, so it gives a greater importance. This approach provides an unrealistic picture about informal groups by describing them as a major source of satisfaction for industrial workers. So, this gives good insight into informal groups, but the importance they have placed on the overall satisfaction on informal groups, that is unrealistic. Okay, we this approach brought out the importance of the informal groups, but it gave a lot of importance, which is very unreal. Many organizational researchers have shown that the workers do not come to factory to seek affection and affiliation, and that the formation of an informal group among them is not a very common. Okay, so not like their only goal to come to the factory is not to seek affection or affiliation into some group. uh, uh, the informal group can happen, okay, and it may not be that mm, uh, the importance that is given with the human relation movement, that is seems to be very unrealistic. Moreover, informal groups, wherever they exist, can only make the worker's day more pleasant and not his task, which continues to remain repetitive, monotonous, and uncreative. So, informal groups, what it can do is maximum is they can make the day very pleasant. Let's say you have group of people around you whom you really you share the same interest. that will help in making your day pleasant. Other than that, it will not help you with any of the task that you have to do. And most of the time, like those tasks will be very repetitive, monotonous, and uncreative. Monotonous is like a same routine work. It's the same work every day. You are doing the same work. And uncreative is like there is no scope for bringing out your creation. Okay, so you can think of an example like in a factory, a particular worker, he is doing certain part. Every day he will come, he will do the same part. Okay, a day after day after day, he will do the same thing. There is no innovation. Let us say if the foreman or his manager ask him to come up with a different design or something else, then it will become more creative. This approach is in fact production oriented and not employee oriented as it claims to be. Okay, so it is production oriented instead of employee oriented. Many of its techniques, such as granting the workers inexpensive symbols of prestige, arranging picnics for the employees, running subsidized canteens, socializing with workers, trick workers into a false sense of happiness, but there is no improvement in their well-being. So we were talking about this, like some of the things are we call it as a hygienic factor. You will come across that word later. Hygienic factors are like those are required for any organization. For employees, those are required, and their presence may not greatly contribute to their motivation or happiness, whatever you want to call it as. But their absence will create a lot of issues. So they give a lot of importance to such things. So providing the subsidized canteen, arranging picnics, things like that. The leisurely process of decision making of this approach cannot work during an emergency. So the decision making is mostly it is based on the human relations. This kind of decision making process will not work in emergencies. Can a platoon commander under orders to capture a hill practice human relations in the thick of the battle when decisions have to be made very quickly? So they have given an example of a commander who is tasked with. Okay, you are able to see my screen, right? Anybody? Are you able to see my screen? Okay, all right. Okay, so a commander, like when he is given order to capture a hill, when he is making a decision, he will not wait for the human relations and all those things. So, whatever is required based on the situation for the given task, he will take decisions immediately. This approach makes an unrealistic demand on the superior. It wants him to give up his desire for power. Desire for power is one of the main reasons why people want to become managers. So this approach also kind of requires that superior to give away his desire of power. Okay, it is true to some extent. Where like when normally people get into a leadership position, they naturally enjoy the powers that comes along with that, and they will not be ready to leave those powers. This approach is based on a wrong assumption that satisfied workers are more productive workers. Attempts to increase output by improving working condition and human relation skills of a manager generally do not result in the dramatic productivity increase that are expected. Okay, this approach uses a wrong assumption that if workers are satisfied, their productivity will be more. Okay, if workers are satisfied, their productivity will be more. That's not a current assumptions. And by improving the working conditions and human relations, that will also help in increasing the productivity. it might help in increasing the productivity, not to that great extent what was they thought. So next one is a behavioral approach. So these are some of the limitations of the human relations moment. Next was the behavioral approach. In this kind of a approach, it is improved and more mature version of human relations approach to management. So this approach was you can say extension of the human relations movement that was proposed earlier, and there were many great management practitioners. You will hear these some of the names very they have contributed a lot to the management area. Douglas McGregor, Maslow. Okay, these are the Chris Argyris. You have already heard about this. So these are the people who worked on the behavioral science, and they called as a behavioral scientist. Okay, who made a significant contribution to the development of the behavioral approach to the management. So these are the many people worked on that, and these scientists were more rigorously trained in various social sciences such as psychology, sociology, and anthropology, and used more sophisticated research methods. So these people were from the different backgrounds. They had studied psychology, sociology, things like that. So they, with those different backgrounds, they approached the behavioral science. Okay, and these people they came to know as behavioral scientists rather than the members of human relations. So they were considered as the scientists, okay, because they approach the behavioral science from different backgrounds. So they were called behavioral scientists. And whatever the findings they came up with their studies, it actually helped in understanding organizational behavior, how the behavior in certain situation and certain relations, how behavioral observations can be made, how it can be used to manage better. So they found out, they gave a lot of findings in this area. Behavioral scientists are highly critical of the classical organization structure, okay, which are built around the traditional concept of hierarchical authority, unity of command, line and staff relations, and narrow span of control. These are the approaches we already talked about, which uh, is part of the classical organization structure. And behavioral scientists, they were a great critic of all these kinds of things. Organizations with the dominations of the workplace by managers, which causes subordinates to become passive and dependent. So, if the manager is a dominant, okay, if manager are given lot of authority, and then most of the time you will see the subordinates become very passive, and they will be dependent. They will not be taking any decisions on their own and things like that. Behaviorists prefer more flexible organization structures and jobs built around the capabilities and aptitudes of the average employees. Okay, so behaviorists, they prefer flexible organization in terms of the structure, and the kind of a job. Okay, and it's most based on the capabilities of the employees. And behavioral approach recognizes the practical and situational constraints on human rationality for making optimal decisions. So here, behavioral approach, it considers the practical and situational constraints along with the human relations. So when we are making the decision. Behavioral scientists attach great weightage to participative and group decision making because it is felt that the business problems are so complex that it is neither fair nor feasible to make individual responsible for solving them. So one of the things, the biggest thing of behavioral approach is a participative and group decision making. So normally this is used now also for the problem solving. Normally the kind of problems that business faces are very complex, okay, and making individual making decisions to solve that kind of a particular problem might result in some inconsistencies, or that decision could be totally wrong. Normally they bring in the whole group who are like involved, okay, directly or indirectly they bring in the whole group. They conduct a lot of discussions based on what the problem statement is. One of the example is like what industry they use, brainstorming. You must have heard the word brainstorming. Brainstorming is what, given a set, given a problem, you will have like a set of people from various background related to the same organization, and that particular problem is presented in front of the group, and group will have a healthy discussion. So they will discuss about the all aspects, what could be the solution, then the for any particular solution proposed, there might be pros and cons or a different thought the other person will get. Many times the brain storming sessions, they come out with a great results, okay, great and unexpected solutions for the problems. So that was the approach that was employed in the behavioral approach. Behaviorists underline the desirability of humanizing the administration of the control process and encouraging the process of self-direction and control instead of imposed control. So, uh, humanizing the administration is like more human values are employed when using the administration, and also they encourage the self-direction and self-control, instead of bringing in the control through the rules or some other channel. That was the main part. They also favor participation in the establishment, measurement, evaluation of the standards of performance. This is very important. So earlier classic approaches, there were standards, but those standards were created based on the experiments. They conducted experiments, and based on that, they came up with the standards. In this particular approach, they encourage the participation from all in establishing those standards, measuring those standards, and evaluating those standards. Let us say you come up with a let us say per day, like certain kind of a job, 15 pieces should be done. Then it will go through the discussion whether that is feasible. All the pros and cons will be talked, and that is how they come up with the those figures. So prompt information feedback. Okay. Okay. Prompt information feedback to those whose performance is off the mark and a need for positive and reformative measures instead of punitive measures. So this thing is followed in IT industry. Okay. Performance measures are set. Okay. Very liberal performance measures are standards are set, and if certain employees they are not on par with that performance, instead of going for like punitive measures, very reformative measures, like what the managers will try to understand why a certain employee is not able to perform. So they will work on improvements. Okay, if let's say some training is required, or some there is a some kind of a family issue, he is not able to pay attention, things like that, they normally come and help you with such situation. So that is the part of the behavioral approach. They have studied why individuals join groups, group size, structure and process, group cohesiveness, and so on. So in this type of a study, what they did was why individuals join the group. That instead of working on what informal groups can do, they studied the dynamics of the groups. Okay, group formation, their structure, and things like that. Behavioral scientists have made extensive studies on leadership. Their view is that the democratic participative style is desirable. The autocratic task-oriented style may also appropriate in certain situations. So we will see different kinds of leaderships. Okay, Autocratic is one kind of leadership that is followed. Very strict autocratic. You can military structure. Okay, military structure, not really autocratic. So you can just relate it very closely to the autocratic. And democratic and participative style, where it is very liberal, like commands can go from top to down, and also command can be suggested from bottom to top. So that is a very democratic style. uh, that is mostly desirable as per the behavioral approach, but they also insist on autocratic, which is task oriented. Whenever situation requires that, we need to have autocratic style where it is very strictly, people are very strictly monitored to complete certain tasks. So you can have like normally this happen in the IT industry. Normally projects, they go in like a very democratic and participative way. A lot of suggestions are taken, suggestions are given. But when it comes to the deliverables, like when it is like a release time, you must have heard from your seniors, or whenever there is a release, they will be tightly scheduled. They will be full on the job because to meet their deadlines. So that is how it is a combination of both. Okay. Uh, to behavioral scientists, the realistic model of human motivation is a complex man. This model suggests that different people react differently to the same situation or react same way to the different situation. No two people are exactly alike, and the manager should tailor his attempts in influence people according to their individual needs. Okay, what it talks about is the motivation, motivating the employees is a very complex thing, and the same rule cannot be applied to all. That's what, to be very specific about what it says is, you cannot apply the same motivational theory to each and individual. You have to understand each and everybody in your team, and according to their needs, you have to think about the implementing the motivational activities. It recognizes that conflict is inevitable and sometimes is even desirable. Okay, so behavioral approach, they it's thing it knows that the conflicts are inevitable. Means when in an organization, conflicts are bound to happen. When we have group of people, conflict is inevitable. Okay, so we and also say sometimes it is desirable to bring in certain time, to bring in certain change in the organization. Sometimes conflicts are required and should be faced with the understanding and determination. So we cannot assume that it would be a great happy family. We should uh, expect conflicts. Okay, and when there is a conflict, there should be, the conflict should be resolved with a great understanding and the determination. Okay, that every organizational change involves technological and social aspect, and what it is generally the social aspect of the change which people resist. Okay, so there are certain changes on the social aspect. Normally you get a resistance from people when we talk about social changes. Historically, if you see like Indian history, this represents this fact. So whenever we came up across social reformers, we call them as social reformers, when they brought in certain changes. So there are a lot of examples when brought in social changes. A lot of reformers are Rajaram Mohan Rai. They worked on many such people are there. When they brought in those changes, there was a lot of resistance. That is what it says. Okay, that is a behavioral approach. Then next one is the like a modern approach. What is the current way of handling the organization, managing the organization? We call it as a modern approaches, and these modern approaches are based on, it is like a evolution, like it is evolving from the classical earlier management theories. It slowly evolved, and in the modern approach, there are mainly three are there: quantitative approach, system approach, and contingency approach. So these are the three approaches that we have. Okay, with this, we will continue in the next class about this one by one quantitative approach in the next sessions, and we will end the today's session. I hope everybody. Um, Whoever came late, everybody has got the attendance. If your attendance is not given, you just post it in the chat section. Okay, we'll end the class. You may join the next class.